Welcome back to the Diary of a CMO, the podcast where I sit with CMOs and thought leaders in marketing and related media, tech, and creative industries. We'll talk about how they got to where they are, strategies and life lessons we can learn from them to help build a career, business, and ultimately a life that we love. I hope you enjoy, and please subscribe. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Diary of a CMO. I am really honored to have my guest on the podcast today. And I think when we set out to start this podcast, one of the things that was important to me was to get the right quality of guests, guests that I knew or that I know have very useful, actionable, inspirational content to really give to a broader audience. And there's no one better than to do this with. Now I'm going to take a shot at your name now, Coach. So just forgive me. So it's Koo Govender.
Yeah, Koo Govender. That's perfect.
Koo Govender. Okay. Now I can relax. I've been dreading that part of the podcast. Now I can relax. Thank you for joining me. Thank you so much for joining me, Koo. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I also feel very humbled to be on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think on the podcast we always like to. I like to say that if the podcast were a dress code, it would be semi-formal. I was having a recording with Don Roland at Dentsu, and I think we spent about 15 minutes talking about wine, uh, or something like that. And then going in and out of other conversations. But I like to start off things with if for those who are meeting you for the first time, Koo, how would you introduce yourself?
Okay, that's a very good question. So I would actually introduce myself as a very fun, loving person, and in terms of I'm very authentic. I love traveling.
Wow,
I'm a exceptionally high performer.
interesting.
Sometimes I don't. I have a low tolerance for non-performers,
Oh wow.
and I genuinely I'm not a shopaholic, as all,
Oh my
but I
days.
genuinely love shopping. Love following fashion trends.
Interesting.
Um, love brands. Sometimes
Mm,
I think I'm a real brand follower. I just want to know what the brands are doing. But I guess as a marketer, you also want to know what brands are doing. I
yep.
do love wine, and I
Interesting.
love red wine. I love a good Merlot. And I used to
Wow.
always say to my friends, my life is too precious to have bad wine. So,
Wow.
uh,
Wow. I need to write that
so
down.
So I really enjoy a good glass of wine and maybe another glass too. I
Okay.
also yeah, and I love reading motivational books. I'm not religious but spiritual.
Got it.
I go to church every Sundays. I pray, but in a sense of when I say spiritual, I have a relationship with God,
Interesting.
and I'm a praying woman
Wow.
in a sense of I feel very grounded when I pray
Wow.
because I feel in terms of prayer and my values they're very in sync together.
Interesting. Wow. Thank you very much, Koo. That's a very heartfelt introduction. So currently, you occupy the position of the CEO, Publicis Group Africa, right?
So I'm going to correct you there. First
Please.
female CEO of
Oh
Publicis Group
wow.
Africa.
I was gonna get there. I was gonna get there, but touche. I was gonna get there, but touche.
I do good,
My
right?
yeah. My follow up to that was going to be what did that feel like for you? Like being the first female CEO?
So I have been a first female CEO in previous companies.
Got it.
Um, but I think for me, it's an honor to be the first female CEO. But with
Mm,
that, I believe that I need to open more seats for other
right,
women to
right,
be female CEOs as well.
right, right, right. I see that mentorship for women is something you take, pretty seriously. And I was looking into your profile, and I saw some of the work that, besides what Publicis is doing with Leading Women Forum, I see that you do
Yeah,
things with some women academy as well. What's really
yeah.
driving you? What drives you in that direction?
So I'm going to share a story with you without giving my age. So when I was in my mid 20s, being in your mid 20s, sometimes you think you know it all. And having children in their 20s now, I can see my behavior in them as well and my characteristics. And and journeying, I was in a very early stages in my career, and I remember reaching out to a female leader in my organization at that stage, and I'd asked her for mentorship. And Teo, she profusely refused mentorship.
Oh wow.
And the words that still really puzzles my mind was she blatantly told me, I don't believe in mentorship and I'm not really for women empowerment. And this was
What?
in my mid 20s. So it was a long time ago.
Oh boy.
And in that such a early age and being basically blurred by a woman in terms
Right,
of not reaching out to be a mentor. I
right.
said to myself, one day when I'm successful,
Wow,
I want to mentor women, and I actually
wow,
want to run a women's academy because
wow,
I was refused mentorship and I want to
wow,
give mentorship back. And what has happened was in two or three companies prior to Publicis, I was the first female CEO there, and the company was called VWV, and
right,
and basically they'd asked me, "W- we'd like you to run a corporate social investment," and I
mm,
thought, wow, this is my opportunity to actually develop and implement a women's academy. And I'll tell you my thought processes being so scarred when I was in my mid 20s. And I thought, what could I do now to pay this forward? And I literally thought of the concept, developed it, and went to the board and presented it. And I said, I would like to approach the final year students in the various marketing institutions. And the reason being is the institutions give great academic tutorials or
right, right, right,
tertiary education.
right,
However, they don't share life skills. And I think as women entering into the corporate, we need the life skills. How do
right,
you negotiate? How do you
right,
craft your goals? How do you actually approach a mentor? And
right,
basically, it's 6 modules. And with the 6 modules, I basically phoned up all my friends and I said, please mentor these young women. There were literally
wow,
40 women, and I had 40 friends that literally
wow,
volunteered their
wow,
time to mentor
wow,
the women. And then we also found internship programs or even found jobs. And I started this initiative in 2014. And this year we're running it for the 10th year. We didn't run it during COVID and 2 years after COVID. And then we're
wow,
running it again. And to date, we've got over 180 women that have gone through the Pakama Women's Academy. And
wow,
in Kosa, Pakama means rise up. And I
wow,
believe that every woman needs this opportunity to rise up and take their
wow,
seats, be it in corporate, be otherwise being an entrepreneur, whatever you are,
mm,
you need to rise up.
wow, wow. That's amazing. Cool. That's really really amazing. I think that it's a what I like about this story is that um, you use your experience not as a roadblock, for you, but rather something that inspired you to do different, to do better for those who were coming like after you. And I can only imagine what goes through the minds of these young women when they get the opportunity to sit across the table from you, over the phone from you, or any of your friends to get like very first hand mentorship. It's really amazing.
And I think it's so important. And Taya, and I'm speaking from my heart on this because it's such close.
I can
It's so
tell.
close
I
to
can
my
tell.
heart, and it comes from a place of hurt because I was literally scarred.
Mm,
And when you enter boardrooms and you're the only female or a few females in these boardrooms, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be seen as, oh, the first female CEO or the only woman in a boardroom. And for me, it's so important. And I would encourage women leaders to actually open more seats for women around the boardroom. And with
wow.
that, I think it's so important that us as senior women help younger women, mentor them, shape them, empower them, equip them to be successful. Because it's so easy to give a woman a title. You don't set her up for success. And then you go, oh, there's another woman that failed.
Right, 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 right. I think, one of the points you made, which kind of resonates very deeply for me as well, is part of the reason I wanted to do the Diary of a CMO was I felt like I couldn't quite find readily a repository of experiential knowledge, life skills knowledge within the advertising and broader marketing communication space where a young professional could just go on the podcast and literally binge listen to every episode because it's the right recipe of both professional experience and personal values and goals and things like that. And as I speak about this, I remember a young lady, incidentally, her name is Tolu, and she sent me a message on LinkedIn and said that the first time she listened to the podcast, she ended up listening to the first 5 episodes. And each of these episodes, on average, is about 40 minutes. And when she said that to me, like that that's like that's like my life mission fulfilled. Like my hope is that what I do is meaningful enough for someone somewhere to be able to binge watch it without being, Game of Thrones or any of the, amazing, stuff,
Exactly.
and listen to it and find value from it. So everything you're saying really resonates with me. I was wondering though, as you look at your career, what are the things that you think, really drove your growth or your progress, or this thing that you have for high performance and all of that? What drives that? Where did you get all of that from?
So I think it's coming from a very traditional home with parents who are like, you have to have a
Hmm,
distinction
hmm, hmm.
and nothing less than that. So that's number
Hmm.
one. Is
Right,
is from an academic perspective, you had to do well in school. But other
right,
than that,
right,
it's as an individual, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself.
right,
I know I was very ambitious at a very young age, but I didn't have the right tools to navigate me through. I had the academics, but I did not have the life skills. So that's the one thing that the ambition was there, but the life skills wasn't there. And therefore, I'm going
interesting.
back to mentorship. Was um, how do I ask a mentor to help me navigate my ambition and the hunger for where I want to be with their
Right,
experience? Because obviously most mentors have the experience and they've gone far before you, and you can even
right.
shortcut in a lot of ways because they can share
Yes,
their learning and experiences. So
yes.
when you ask me what it is, it's the ambition and that desire
Right.
to be successful that comes.
Fantastic.
But in a very honest way, I didn't know how to get there in terms of life
Right.
skills.
Wow. Wow. It's always. I'm so sorry. Like I'm fascinated because as you were talking, it felt
Yeah.
like deja vu listening to Kenzie, the CMO at Nedbank.
Yes.
She was on the podcast as well, and she said something similar. She spoke about ambition at a very early age, and I'm so glad that nobody is cringing at the mention of the word ambition from a woman. It's almost like if it used to feel like it was a taboo for a woman to be ambitious. So ambition, it appears to be like a common thread, and then this thing about mentorship and life skills, because Kenzie also spoke about an experience that she had where she used to be, she used to speak up about how she felt, almost regardless of how the team was going to take it or whatever. But in the same fashion, where you talked about speaking to a mentor and someone trying to guide you, was the same thing for her. Finding someone who was able to tell her, listen, you're an amazing human being. I know you are an amazing human being. You are brilliant. You are ambitious. But these are some of the other ingredients that you need to put into that to make it a total package. And I, and I'm and, I- and
Absolutely.
I'm fascinated by that because I see that consistent pattern, which means that it must be a model that works, right? Cool.
Completely. And a lot of people could could define success in different shapes and forms, right? But when
Right,
you're
right,
speaking about your career trajectory in terms of where you want to go to, you're
right,
speaking about the recipe. As women, maybe let's talk about baking a cake. The essentials are the butter, the sugar, the eggs, the flour. And if one ingredient is not there, the critical ingredients, that cake is going to
right,
flop, right?
right,
So for
right,
me, in terms of the ambition and a career trajectory, I think learning is a continuous journey. So you can never say,
right,
I've got my degree and I've had enough. So that's one of the
right,
things. But in terms of
right,
life skill, it is your values. What are your values? You know, are your values actually grounding you? And Taya, I
right.
want to speak very honestly and openly about this. Being in a
Please do,
leadership
please do.
position, it's very lonely on the top, right? Because sometimes you've got to make some really tough, unpopular decisions.
Mm,
And for me, I'm gonna speak about the values, the authenticity. I believe that I'm a charismatic leader. I'm an inspirational leader. But when it comes to my moral compass is fairness. And I'm going to say something really
mm,
silly. When I put my head on the pillow for that night, I know my conscience is clear. In a
wow,
sense, I've acted
wow,
ethically, I've acted with
wow,
integrity, I've acted with
wow.
fairness, I've acted with my values intact. And there's times where I could have hurt somebody unconsciously or said something in a blind spot situation. My conscience would
Right,
worry me, or that person would come to me and say, Cool, I didn't like the way you spoke to me, or I didn't like the way you referred to that. Immediately,
right.
I would go, Oh my God, I made a mistake. I'm sorry.
Wow,
So that's the
wow.
other important thing about being a leader is also
Yeah,
accepting your blind spot and accepting your
right.
mistakes. None of us are perfect. So,
Absolutely.
so, so from where we're going in terms of leadership as well, I think that's so important as whether it's a male leader or female leader is how
Yeah.
you leading. What are your
Mm,
values?
hmm.
Um, what is your behavioral characteristics that if someone had to
Right,
say, who is Teo? Give me three things about
right,
Teo. You would
right,
want, you would want, I, with me, I would always say, I would want it to go, oh, she's hardworking, integrity, values, authenticity. And those are
right,
the things that I'd want people to, to speak about me because I'm genuinely that person.
right. Wow. Wow. I mean, I, I didn't typically when I'm on this podcast, I ask questions that I would like to get answers to, right? And
Yes.
then, but then it's always very exciting when even before I ask certain questions, the guest some way or the other just kind of segues into it and really captures the whole essence of the conversation. I want to talk about, just in terms of Publicis as a business now. How are you navigating the currents, the economic or macroeconomic currents across Africa, across the rest of the world? How's business doing, if I ask that way?
So I'm going to give you a very macro level of business. I
Okay.
think business is so from where the economy is going, it's tough out there. But
Right.
what are my aspirations or what I would want for Publicis is we want to be the agency of choice across the network. And what does
Got it.
that mean? That we provide great solutions for client. And I say this very boldly, we want to be our clients or partners indispensable partner.
Hmm.
So
Right.
that
Right.
is our aspiration, that we can, when a client says, this is not making me sleep at night, how can we help clients solve the problem? So from a
Wow.
publicist perspective, it's not only about chasing money, it's about
Right.
truly doing something right in the
Right.
marketing and communications industry.
Interesting. Got it. Got it. I like that. I like how you said, what keeps the clients awake at night? How are we that indispensable partner that we want the client to call
Exactly.
when they wake up in the morning? Listen, I had this nightmare. I need your help. How do we solve this problem? Kind of situation.
And
Interesting. I wanted to talk to you. Go on. Go on.
sorry, I just want to. Sorry, when you get me on a topic, I just carry on. So I think
I
it's
love it. I love
important.
it.
I think it's important as well. From an agency perspective, and now that the agencies have to go through procurement, so it's a little bit
Mm,
transactional as well. But
mm.
it's not your client; it's your partner, and it's your business
Right.
partner. So we in this
Right.
together, even though there's a
Right.
transactional thing of a contract, but how can we help serve you better and
Right.
also understand your brand better, understand your
Right.
competitors better, understand your
Right.
category better? So I think that's
Right.
important for an agency to really
Hmm.
subscribe to these following things to
Right.
partner better with clients.
Got it. Got it. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. I was going to talk to you about your time at Cannes as well, and I had this conversation with Andisa Vodacom, and
Yes.
we had a pretty exciting conversation regarding B2B on that side of everything that there. But tell me about that experience, especially from the perspective of Africa as a continent, and
Okay.
our showing and all of that stuff. What was that like for you?
So I'm going to speak about my judging experience. So
Got it.
I was a judge on the Glass Category Award. I was the first South
Hmm.
African person to be a juror on that award. So basically, that
Wow.
award is on gender inequality and also
Right.
prejudice. So
Right.
so can you believe, I'm such a woman advocate, and I was on the right.
I'm telling you, it's the perfect panel for you. I agree
uh,
with you.
Absolutely perfect panel for me. But I learned so much. It was such an honor to be part of that panel. So, firstly,
Right.
from a creative perspective, brands are truly working with purpose. And that
Mm,
was something that I really appreciated, that where brands, and I'll speak about a specific brand, which
got
was,
it.
and also brands which are really brave, because sometimes I think brands stick to a certain restrictive
Right.
rule book,
Right. I
which
get you.
is
I
you've
get
got
you.
to be politically correct because they
I
want,
get you.
with social media, people are really worried because from a social media perspective, and also from a consumer perspective, consumers are
Right.
completely vocal as well. So I think sometimes brands try to take the safe route. And the
True.
one brand which I truly admired was Unilever. They had actually won the Grand Prix for the glass lines, was a
Mhm.
transgender lotion. And basically,
Right.
Thailand has a majority of transgender in
Right.
Thailand. I think the highest
Right.
transgender people. They basically did their research and created a lotion, or developed a lotion for transgender women. And I thought
Mm.
that just broke
Interesting.
through the clutter in terms of being politically correct.
Right. Right.
So with and what I took away from Cannes was brands with purpose, but the emotional connection with customers or consumers still reign. Humor,
Mm.
as much as there's
Mm-hmm.
there's tech
Mm-hmm.
and data, but I think
Mm-hmm.
the emotional connection is still so pivotal,
Right.
and the
Right.
human
I think
centricity.
the conversation about purpose driven brands is an interesting one. And I remember as well one of the case studies from Cannes. But without going to that, it's I just wanted to get your perspective in terms of how do how can a brand become a, or I don't know if that's a right construct, how can a brand become more purpose driven? Again, with that sort of, it almost seemed like if you're going to be purpose driven, you can't make as much money. I don't know if that's true or false, but how can we build brands that are more purpose driven?
So I think the number one, we know that for brands to survive, you have to make profits, and
Right.
that's the most important thing. I
Absolutely.
am
Absolutely.
so the revenue has to be there, but I think brands with purpose is something before that. The brand has to be completely authentic with their purpose, because if they're just pretentious about brands with purpose, our consumers will definitely see through that, right? But
Right.
I think
Right.
for me, brands with purpose, and if I look at Unilever and how they broke through the clutter, and also being so brave with the transgender lotion, is finding something that resonates with the brand and then
Mm.
creating a purpose with that. And I think
Right.
that's when the
Right.
authenticity comes in as well.
Right. Right. Interesting. I think authenticity is that I think it's the is that word that some people like to hear, and some people now sort of cringe when they hear it because they feel like brands have now everything is now under authenticity. It sort of takes away from the original meaning of the word or the concept itself.
Yeah.
And we just see, and some of the case studies you talked about, and some of the case studies we see, especially with the category you were the part of the jury of, is where you see that true purpose and authenticity really, really come through. And like you said, today's consumer, they see through everything. Like if you're just trying to,
Exactly.
tick a box, they
Exactly.
see through everything.
And I think the
Now,
purpose has to have an impact on the community or people around. So there was another brand called Lay's in India,
mm,
and
mm,
basically, in terms of sowing potatoes, seeding
mhm, mhm,
potatoes, and
right.
it helped women farmers plant
Mhm,
potatoes. And it was an
interesting.
ergonomics of how to, the equipment to start reaping the potatoes. So I think
Mm,
that it really resonated in terms of Lay's being potato chips, going into a potato farm, doing their research, and helping women to become better
mm,
potato farmers. So I think that
interesting.
the brands with purpose has to be in alignment, and it has to be
Mm,
authentic.
absolutely. Absolutely. So let's tone it down a bit.
Okay,
Cool. I
sure.
was going to ask you. We talked about your love for wine before we started the podcast. Where does that stem from? And what is that? What is that like? What's that side of you like?
um, the stem for me, wine is, I know this sounds so weird, but it actually relaxes me. It
Oh boy.
really, really relaxes me.
Oh
And
my god.
and and it puts me into a really mellow mood.
Interesting.
And therefore I just go, oh, like yesterday, I had such a tough day. And I'm like, oh, I'm just looking forward to a glass of wine. So it just, so there's one thing, and I know it sounds so weird, but it puts me, it relaxes me and just puts me in a very
Got it.
calming mode. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Wow. Wow. I drink some wine as well, but I'm not as what's the word I'm looking for? The way you speak about
Connoisseur.
wine, it
Connoisseur.
almost sounds absolutely, yeah. I'm not like a connoisseur like you. I think, but the way you speak about wine, it's like talking about a better half. Like this is, you know. Uh, but I was gonna ask about family. Like, what's uh what's your growing up like? What was growing up like for you? Neighborhood, family, fun memories about growing up for you.
Okay. I grew up in a small town in South Africa, and it's in the North Coast. So it was a very small town, a very close family, very close neighbors. Grew up in a really good community, and I
Got it.
studied in KZN. And then, as lots of us uh, children those days, when we were 18, we were like 18, and after we studied into our 20s, we go, okay, what's the big next step? And it was Johannesburg. So I took the plunge and moved to Johannesburg and got my
Wow.
first job in Johannesburg. So
Interesting.
um so
Interesting.
so so but growing up in a loving family, in a with close knit friends and community, I think that's what grounded me as well, to become,
Interesting.
a mother, and how I would nurture my own family.
Wow. Wow. Interesting. Interesting. As we start to sort of round this up, I was going to ask about what are your biggest influences in life? Whether on a personal level or professional level, what would you consider your biggest influences? I could tell from your some of the initial things you'd shared, that your spiritual growth and all of that is a bit would definitely be a big influence for you. What are the other things that are big influences for you, whether they are specific people or whatever? Yeah.
So I said I'm a fun, loving person, right? But I'm also
Hmm.
a little bit of a softie. And so I'm going to share a very personal story, because I think vulnerability is so important as a leader as well. So I was
Appreciate that.
very happily married for 28 years. And 2.5 years ago, my husband had a sudden heart attack and passed away. And
Wow.
he was such an influencer in my life, because he was an engineer. There was no gray. It was either black or white, and he was strong and tough. And he would go, stop entertaining, nonsense. This, you got to make a decision. You've got to do this. You've got to be decisive. And I think he played such a pivotal role in my life, 30 years of my life, that actually
Wow.
shaped and molded me in who I
Wow.
am as a woman. And then my other
Wow.
influences were my parents as well. Looking at the way they nurtured a family, that's exactly how I wanted to nurture my two boys. and
Interesting.
and then looking at women who really broke through the glass ceilings as well. That
Mm.
really inspired me. So there were lots of influences, and it's
Wow.
not only people on a higher level or superior level, but there were people
Right.
that also, that inspired me with certain values and certain characteristics. And I
Mm.
said, oh wow,
Mm.
that influenced me. I can take some of that. So it's literally a combination of things that really
Right.
shaped and molded me to who I am today.
Wow. Wow. Thank you very much, Koo, for opening up that side of you. It's really really interesting. I can't help but wonder, you know, what that felt like and how you thrived despite that experience, especially with your kids and with this level of career that you are at, you know. How are you able to manage that and thrive? How are you able to do that?
So you're speaking about grief, right?
Yes.
So my husband passed away so suddenly. My life literally changed in minutes. And the one thing that I had to hang on to was my spirituality. And I literally knew, my two boys are 28 and 26. I literally knew that I had to now be there for them, or take control as this leader of the house. But
Right.
it's the resilience, it's the tenacity, and it's your
Wow.
faith of literally showing up every single day, which I've done for the last 2.5 years, to say,
Wow.
my husband's journey, um, I feel like, I look at it as a book. His book is
Right.
closed, but my book is still open. So I got to
Absolutely.
continuously to run my race. And we speak about purpose. It's not only brands, it's me. How do I live my purpose? And how do I share my experiences of grief and overcoming what I went through in terms of challenges? How can I help and empower other women and men that are going through the journey of grief? So all in all, I just believe maybe this is my purpose, to help other
Wow.
people with my tragedy.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Cool. I feel like this doesn't feel like a podcast. I feel like we are I feel like we're sitting somewhere, in a restaurant overlooking these oceans in Cape Town, and just having a glass of wine and catching up. That's how this feels like. I
Yeah.
appreciate you being vulnerable about this way. I really do.
And I think, Teo, this is the most important thing, as much as, you call it the CMO podcast, but it's important
Right.
to understand the human elements of people, because somebody may
Absolutely.
be listening to this podcast and really needs that inspiration. And, just
Absolutely.
words of saying, you need to show up, give it your best, run your best race. And your best race
Wow.
doesn't have to be loads of money and loads of success, but run it in the best
Yeah.
possible way you can. And I think that's
Yeah.
the important thing, is we all humans.
Wow. Well, okay. 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 I'm just going to. Okay. All right. So cool. Thank you very much. You mentioned your boys. Let's talk about that. I have a boy. He's just
Okay.
Nathan is just 8. So I have it's a long road to 28, 26. But what are some tips you can give me? What are some tips you can give me? I asked some of my guests the same question. I'm gathering all the
Okay.
tips that I need.
So Creston's 28. He's a chartered accountant. He lives in Stockholm, Sweden.
Okay.
And Kelton's 26 is an engineer that he lives with me in Johannesburg. They are my worst fashion police. If I'm
Oh my
dressed,
God.
oh
Oh
my
my
God,
God.
they go, "Man, that does not suit you at all. You need to look stumpy, or so I've got to be on point in terms. So they
Oh,
like my proper fashion police. And also, my husband and I really taught them good values. And then sometimes when I miss it, they go, I don't think that was cool, what you just said. So I love that about them. And the other thing is, because I had my kids at a younger age, we get to party together, we get to travel together. They get very irritated when people go, is that your older sister?
Oh my goodness.
So, but honestly, I really love hanging out with them. Really, really love hanging out with them. And then I hear all the cool words and I try to imitate
Right.
them and they go, Mom, it doesn't
No,
suit you. You're too old for
no,
this.
mom. No, no, stop. No, mom, stop.
Yeah. No, just stop.
Oh
So,
my goodness. Oh my
but I
goodness.
did one
Thank
thing
you.
right. I did one
Okay.
thing right. They both
Okay.
love red wine at a very young age. They love red wine. I did one thing right in terms of converting them into good wine drinkers.
I think you did many things right. I think you did many things right beyond being beyond sharing your love for wine with them. I think you did a lot more than that because
Yeah,
from everything you're
values. Yeah,
saying, they turned out pretty well.
they did. They did.
Um, I just wanted to say this to you. I haven't met you in person. I have read about you. I have watched you. And just looking at your career trajectory and everything that you have done, accomplished, and continue to do, not within the advertising industry, but outside as well, especially with all the different women themed programs that you are a part of. And now just kind of listening to you and getting to know you more on a personal level, I must say, Koo, you are an amazing woman. You are a thriving woman. You are an incredibly warm human being. And I want you to know that regardless of what life throws at you, whether now or going forward, you are more than enough to get through it. I just felt the need to say that to you.
Thank you. I hope you don't say that to every.
No, you can go ahead and listen to all the other episodes. I've never said it like that before. Never, never.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, yeah. My final question to you, Ko, would be: what would you say to the 15-year-old Ko? What would you say to her?
I would say that's actually a really good question. So the one thing that I didn't speak about was my fear. My fear is the fear of failure. So I've always been so risk averse. So I would say to
Mm,
my 15-year-old self is take more risk,
mm,
and make more mistakes as long as you learn from your mistakes, because that's one of the things that I didn't do was make more
right,
mistakes because I was so afraid of failing. And if you had to
right,
ask me, Koo, what was your barriers? My barriers to my success was my own lack of confidence, and that lack of confidence came from the fear of failure.
got it.
So I would say to my 15-year-old self, get your confidence, girl. You got it. And make
Wow.
more mistakes. As long as you learn from it, you're going to go places.
Oh man, I couldn't wrap up the podcast better than you just did. Thank you so much, Cole, for a very warm, exciting, heartfelt episode. And I wish we had more time, but I have to let you go now.
Thank
Hopefully, we
you.
can find some time soon in the future to bring you back on. But thank you again. Thank you very much. And I will be in touch. And do take care of yourself. My love
Thank
to
you.
the
Thank
boys.
thank
When I come to Cape Town next time, probably share a bottle of wine, have a good time, and then, get to know
We'll
each
go
other
to
a
a nice
little more.
vineyard. We'll go to a lovely vineyard.
All right, cool. You take care of yourself. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
God bless. Bye. Bye.